So let's start. Alright guys, Caffeinated Magician here. I'm with my friend Joe Piper. We met online through Instagram, and I hit him up a few days ago and he said he'd be willing to do an interview. Um, we already did one, but the recording didn't go through, so this would be a second time around. So some of the questions probably going to be answering them are the same, but maybe change it up a little bit. So I hope you guys enjoy this. Yeah, let's get into it, man. So, anyways, you've been doing magic ever since you were a kid. How old were you when you started again?
So I always had an interest in magic from, when I was like 7, 8 years old, but it was, you know, to do with movie special effects and how they were created and how things were made, you know what I mean? Rather than actually magic or illusions or whatever. But the interest was there from about 8 years old. But when I went to college, I still had an interest in card tricks and stuff. I was doing film studies, photography. Like I said, I was more interested in the movie production, special effects side of things.
So, what was your the first trick that you've ever learned, and how did you make that trick your own after you first learned it, or just kind of stuck with the basics of it, or what?
I would say probably the first one I properly, well, first few I probably remember learning was color changing silk from one silk to another, just with a gimmick silk with, it turns inside out. And that just looked cool doing it in the mirror, and doing it to your friends, it's a quick thing. Cups and balls, I read some magic books, and I think one of my mum's friends bought me like a Playboy magic kit when I was a kid. It was a Playboy brand one, but it was a basic magic kit, a bit more upscale than most of the ones you find in the supermarket or Target or whatever. And it just had zigzag pencil, cups and balls, and the little flip trick, and learned those and performed those. And yeah, the interest was always there, but then properly, in college, I bought some proper books, like a card college book and the Art Astonishment set of books, especially when I was working at Marvin's. I got a lot of recommendations. Yeah, learning a proper ambitious card or a proper triumph rather than gimmick decks. Probably the first few card tricks I learned. Yeah, triumph and ambitious card.
So, what is your preference, and what do you think is better? Maybe you think it doesn't matter, and there's good in both. But what is your preference, books or DVDs?
I think for learning full routines, like card routines and stuff, I prefer books because you can flick back and forth in the pages and look at the moves and remember the steps. I find it easier to learn a full card or coin routine from a book rather than trying to pause or rewind a DVD or a download or whatever. You can just flick the pages back and forth. But then for like cardistry moves and some other sleight of hand, sometimes DVD or download can be good because you can see the move in action. You know what I mean? It does help. Videos definitely have their place, especially in cardistry tutorials, I think.
Yeah, I
Now.
think the benefits for a book is, even though maybe it's a bit harder to learn since you can't visually see it, you can easily make it your own more so, because you don't like this for the same reason. You don't know exactly what it should look like. So you read the description and you read how it works, so to speak, and then you're like, okay, this is how I interpret it in my mind that it should look, and you make your own trick.
No, definitely there's an aspect to that. When you read it in a book, obviously if it has very good illustration, you can visualize it because it shows you the moves. Like I said, in the Art Astonishment series, very good illustrations. But on the DVD, I think you're right. There's a danger when you're watching the creative performer, you end up copying his performance sometimes. You know what I mean? And his presentation as well. And you end up doing it, following along him rather than having the moves and doing it in your own style. I think that can be a thing to watch for DVDs and downloads. Is don't copy the creator's style in the presentation. I'm guilty of it myself sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what would be your tips for, like, making your own presentation for a trick, like specifically your pattern and how you like make the story, or how you present it in such a way where it's your own? Like, what would be tips on doing that?
I try and be as organic as possible. I know a lot. I do some storytelling in my triumph routine, and I sort of put a personal spin on ambitious cards to do with names, and and I normally do it on either couples or two best friends or a set of twins. And I just on my Instagram, I posted a presentation where the names end up on one card. I met a set of twins in a nightclub I was performing at, and I'd met them before, and they opened up their wallet and pulled out the card. These identical twin girls with the names on it. Said, "We've had this card in our wallet for 2 years since you did it to us. If you put a good presentation,
right,
it can mean something to the audience, But it's like I try and think what would fit with the trick, like not what's going to be cheesy or what's cliche or something that fits your character. So I make it quite casual, write your name, you say her name, it comes back to the top, and let's put both your names together, you're a couple, and try and make it organic is my style. Some people like more theatrical. People like Shin Lim do a lot of times silent, but talks of it and his expressions and his face. Some people don't feel comfortable talking in public, but they find performing. You know what I mean? It's about finding what you, as a performer, feel comfortable with. If you want to do a comedy, put some laughs in it, ease that tension. That's good. That has an aspect as well. I think it's about finding what suits you. You know what I mean? Don't try and be Chris Angel. Don't try and be Blaine. Find your own persona, what you feel comfortable with, and it'll make your performance easier as well because you're being yourself rather than trying
to develop your own character. And also there's what I'm getting from you, and I agree, is there's no really right or wrong way to present a trick as long as it's original with you.
Of course, yeah. Do what you feel fits with your personality, and everything else will come easier.
Yeah. One of the best presentations I've probably seen in a while, if ever, was Jay Sankey, which, for those of you who don't know, he's a really well-known underground close-up magician, not even underground, just a really well-known close-up magician. And he does Asian stuff further. And on his Instagram, he has this thing called, go ahead.
What was his name?
I said one of the best presentations that I've seen.
Yeah,
Huh?
I know Jay Sankey, yes.
Yeah. So, he did this trick, and he posted it on his Instagram, where he did a torn and restored trick, and the presentation was so beautiful. What he was talking about was how, there's can be tension in marriage which causes a divorce, and then he would rip up the cards, and then he kind of says the pattern says. So that's why I think one of the most beautiful things is where you can make a marriage work, and then it restores the card. And I'm like, man, that is just a great presentation. It's so original. And that's what we're talking about is, make it your own. Come up with something that hasn't been done before, that, would engage the audience, and not just oh, here's another.
Yeah, definitely, man. When you engage the audience, they're going to be less critical of your sleight of hand. They're not going to burn your hands as much, and they're going to engage in the trick, and it can turn it from a trick into something more rather than just a puzzle or whatever thing to figure out. They become engaged, and it becomes more of a magic trick. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So you mentioned David Copperfield, and I think you mentioned David Blaine. In our last interview, remind me if I'm wrong, but you would say that your favorite magician out of all of them is David Blaine, and if I'm right, why?
Yeah, I did say that. I said when I was a little kid, Copperfield was the man, and I grew up watching him do his magic specials, going over the Niagara Falls and Great Wall of China and flying, and that was a big influence, especially the flying and the Great Wall. These were they looked like a movie. They were a big production. It was a big influence. But then later on, Blaine, when I was in college and I was doing card tricks, and I was quite a grungy punk kid, and I liked magic, but seeing Blaine on TV performing, dressed like me and doing similar magic, I thought, oh, this is cool. I don't have to wear a top hat and a suit. And not that anything wrong with that, but it wasn't it didn't fit me.
Yeah.
I don't have to be that kind of magician to be a magician. You can be a different style and be a magician, and that's why I created Blaze Inspiration. He made me realize you could be yourself and do magic. You didn't have to stick to the sort of cliche top hat and gloves or whatever. You know what I mean? And he was good level of sleight of hand and had good presentation, and he had really developed his magic character very well. That sort of urban shaman character, and I just he was also quite cinematic in his sort of or documentary style in his first few specials, and it was a big influence. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's another thing. The presentation is not only just the trick and what you say about it. It's also your clothing, your style, how you appear to the audience. Like high school, there's jock, there's emo, there's prep, there's kind of like dork, or nerd. So there's a whole bunch of different classifications, and you want to create your own character. How do you appear, to your audience and engage them? And some people are gonna go with it, and some people aren't. But as long as you're true to yourself, that's more important than what your audience thinks of you. You want to enjoy your magic first before somebody else enjoys it, or else it's not going to be authentic.
Yeah, definitely. I always thought that you'll find your audience. Don't try and impress a certain audience, or if you create a character or style and some audience doesn't like it or whatever, don't be disheartened. You will end up finding your audience. If you're performing, the people that like that style will watch you. You know what I mean? You create your own audience. Don't worry. You can't make everyone like everything all the time. You know what I mean? Like that's why people like R&B or heavy metal or pop. It's like those are all different genres. You can't put on Britney Spears or whatever at a hardcore punk show and expect everyone to like it.
Yeah. Yeah, because like if you go back to music, not only genres, but there's different artists within that genre. So like you might do close-up magic, but you don't want to do, like you were saying before, you don't want to be Jay Sankey, you want to be you. So you don't want to be just, Britney Spears was her. She wasn't Taylor Swift. They were totally two different people.
No, I do a couple of Jay Sankey's tricks. He's a great creator, man. There's a couple of his tricks that are solid in my repertoire. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, for sure. There's nothing wrong with like borrowing tricks, but you want to develop it so it's your own presentation and style. But when I was younger and first starting out, of course, I think we all have the tendency to want to copy exactly what we see because it makes it so much easier. But at the same time, there's nothing wrong with it as long as you're not copying every single part of the routine. If you want to take some bits and pieces, like comedy bits and stuff, and add that in, I think that's fine. But just don't be a total copier of what you see,
I think a lot of popular artists will always echo the sentiment to become one of the greatest. You have to study the greats. And
exactly. Yeah.
And you can see say Michael Jackson, a lot of his moves are from James Brown. He used to watch James Brown and he used to big up James Brown all the time. Everyone is influenced by someone, no matter how big they themselves are as an artist or popular. You remember they were once a little kid being influenced by someone watching them on TV or listening to their music. And Michael Jackson used to study old mimes and James Brown, and he used their moves, but he never acted like he invented them. But yeah, everyone's got influence from someone. As long as you make it your own, like you were saying, then that's just part of it. It's part of the creative process.
Yeah. So I asked this before, but just so my YouTube audience knows, what is your favorite type of magic to perform?
I would say with me, it's 50-50 cards and coins. I really can't decide between them. I really do love a good card routine, but I love a nice visual coin trick, three fly or coin matrix, etc. I do enjoy table magic, doing a table set, performing close up at a venue. I did a lot of private members clubs and recently like Magic Roundabout in London, where I just had a table performing. People can come and go and watch magic. So I felt comfortable. People could sit and watch and go, and having that space to do a close-up set. I have done a lot of cabaret involving special effects like gore effects at heavy metal shows involving blood, and some fire effects for music videos recently, a couple of years ago, doing fire effects in a music video, and some other sort of theatrical makeup special effects for a video with like the big Hollywood contact lenses being a vampire in a video, etc. But close-up is really what I enjoy performing, even if I've got stage shows and doing cabaret. It's great fun, but just for myself, sitting there reading a good magic book and learning a card routine is quite satisfying. You know what I mean? When you learn it right, even just for my self-entertainment, I would say close-up card and coin. I really enjoy watching a good mentalist performance like Darren Brown or Max Maven. It's not really my style to perform. I do a couple slight mentalism effects, so like guessing the time on a watch. But I love watching other performers do really good mentalism, and obviously some stage stuff as well. You know.
Yeah, man. So you mentioned mainly cards and coins. Which one of those do you like more than the other, and why do you think that makes that particular one is more superior than the other?
If I had to push to guess, I would say cards because I like just keeping a pack of cards in my jacket pocket. And even if you're on a long train ride or something, you can sit there and spring the cards and do it. It's quite meditative. You know what I mean? Like a bit like reading a book, sit there doing the moves. But it's very close because I always keep like a silver dollar or a $50 in my little coin pocket. And I do the same. I sit there on the train or bus ride. I sit there, palming the coin over and over, building up those muscles or whatever. Again, meditative. I would say cards just because I also love collecting cards and designing cards and finding new cards. But yeah, cards at a push, but pretty much 50-50.
Yeah, since we're talking about cards, you want to show, I'll tell this to the group first or the audience, but Joe has created his own cards, designed them, and so he's in the process of getting them out. You want to show everybody what they're
doing? But I think, and they're being printed. I should have them hopefully tomorrow, but in the next few days. So that was the first one. That was the Dexter Yellow Diamond. That's on matte laminate box. You've got the
I like the yellow one. Yellow's my favorite
back design on there, seamless, and those are with a border. So they have a border on them. Yeah. And then you've got the sterling silver edition with metallic silver on the box, and that's sort of a soft touch laminate. It's a different material, and it's got inside the tuck box printing all the way inside. And those ones are borderless. And that's one of the jokers, but those are borderless like that. And they've got the silver diamonds, and they have metallics on the face card as well. If you look at the kings, weapons, etc., the ace of spades, and you also get gimmick cards included. You get a double backer and a duplicate card, etc. And yeah, they're really good for fanning. They're quite sturdy and springing. They're good workers. They're good workers cards. They'll stand up to some abuse. I'm looking forward to the third prototype. If that arrives, it's got a few different material changes. If I'm happy, then we should launch within the next 7 days. They're live on Kickstarter now for sign up. Just go to my other account, Diamond Eye Crystal Skull, and the Kickstarter link is there, and you can sign up to be notified. Hopefully you Hopefully you like my designs.
Yeah, I like the yellow ones. That's my favorite color, so they really stand out to me. So what was your inspiration for those cards? You shared before, but if you want to go ahead and rehash it.
So basically, yeah, I wanted this design because I like it's a traditional tattoo diamond. This style is very iconic. You see a lot of alternative people with that tattoo on them. A lot of couples get it tattooed here on their finger, on their ring finger, when they get married. You get double diamond, or some people just have it as a little pinky tattoo. I have one on my arm here, incorporated into a sort of a larger sort of ace of spades spade. It's not finished yet, but I have that diamond tattooed here in the middle in blue. I just wanted that on a card, and I wanted an elegant sort of black and white card. It's something that I wanted, and I searched, and no one had really done this, so I ended up doing my own design, and people liked it, so I decided to release it. Yeah.
So should I handle that question? I can't think of it. Oh yeah. So what would be nice is in the future, they would really go good with an anniversary waltz that has the diamond in there. You want to get some gimmick cards made where you can do that. I think that'd be pretty dope.
Anniversary waltz was one of the inspirations for my ambitious card. If you watch it, it ends up with two signatures on the one card. Anniversary waltz is a classic effect, and I just wanted one that I could do any time of any deck of cards. And had a couple people signatures on it, but it being one card. Yeah, so that was Anniversary Waltz was an inspiration for that trick.
Yeah. Yeah, and speaking of which, Anniversary Waltz is a very technical sleight of handish trick, and so off of that, idea, what is your preferred type of card magic? Do you like the more technical stuff, the more kind of hard to practice, hard to get down, or do you like the very simple, straightforward, self-working card tricks?
A little bit of both. Everything has its place depending on the audience and stuff. If I'm at a party or something like this, and I'm like, Joe, do a trick. Show these guys a trick. I'm not gonna break out my smoothest invisible palm routine or full gambling routine. I'll probably just do, here then there, like the switching of the cards that Blaine did, or maybe an ambitious card, even if it's not the full routine. Or I might even bend a spoon or a fork, like sometimes you want a relatively self-working trick for some situation. But I love learning full gambling routines, or I think like Out of This World is a great routine, the separation of the blacks and the reds, and to do that with an audience member and stuff is quite hard. I always have a spectrum of all of that in my arsenal. Sometimes I'll do a simple trick at a pinch. If I'm performing somewhere, I'll break out In a Flash by Jay Sankey, which is half gimmicked, half quite hard sleight of hand. If you want to do it properly with the turnover pass and showing all the cards, etc., you can sort of tweak a trick to how hard or easy you want it if you want sometimes. But I think all of those have a place in your arsenal when you're performing.
For sure. So, what is your advice to somebody that how to get over nerves so you can come up to a random stranger on the street or maybe in a restaurant and perform a trick for them, or maybe even a cashier at the at the store or what have you?
I would say obviously performing to your friends and family for practice is part of it, and I know that sounds like it can be hard sometimes that your family and friends are your harshest critic, because and sometimes you feel nervous performing for them in your character because they know you and not your character you perform as. It can feel a bit weird, but once you get over that, that can help, because then you can do it in front of your friends. Then when it's a stranger, it means even less, because you don't know them. You know what I mean? So they don't know what your character is or what your day-to-day self is. But I think busking at a spot rather than just doing to random people on the street, which is good for TV and footage, or if it's a YouTube video or Instagram video. But if you have a spot, that's why I prefer table magic, and people can come over and watch, is my preferred method. When I do gigs now, I always have a table set up. If you look at my YouTube, you can see some live stream videos of me performing at clubs. But get into your character and be that character when you perform them. Approach them as your sort of magic persona rather than yourself, and that will help with the nerves. And if you practice that persona on your friends, even if it seems a bit silly at the start, that's going to help you as well. And
maybe we'll end on this, which by the way, everything. This is really good advice to everybody. But speaking of what was my question? Speaking of character, what is your recommendation or your advice on creating your own character? How would you go about doing that?
Well, it depends what appeals to you. Again, going back, what you feel comfortable with. Like you might like Chris Angel, but do you really want your character to be like a goth magician or a rock and roll magician or whatever? Or you might like Blaine, or do you want to be like that urban shaman? Think, imagine yourself in your head performing on stage rather than looking at other performers. Or imagine yourself, sort of visualize yourself performing a routine for your friend to film. Like, how would it look, and how do you see yourself in your head, and then sort of trying to emulate that and develop that and sort of condense that and then create a persona for you to perform as. So I'm not saying you don't be yourself, obviously be yourself, but most performers have a character that they go into when they perform. You know,
Right.
Lady Gaga's name is not Lady Gaga. That's the character she performs at. You know what I mean? And that is a character. Once you sort of find what the character you want to project and you feel comfortable with, just develop that. It's not an instant thing. It might take years to fully develop that character. And then you look at old footage of yourself performing, and you're like, you seem so geeky or sort of goofy or whatever. But that's just part of the process. You know, you develop the character over time.
Right. So how, we'll learn more, even more specifically on this, and I'll even share how I did with mine. But how did you come up with your own character? What was your own, what was your kind of process of like, okay, this is what I'm going to be?
For me, like I said, special effects and those sort of movies, but stuff like Big Trouble in Little China, Escape from LA, and Escape from New York, those sort of 80s semi-science fiction fantasy movies where everything was a bit larger than life and almost a bit psychedelic. It wasn't quite the 70s anymore, and everyone wasn't on acid, but there was still that neon psychedelic aspect to the movies where everything was a bit exaggerated and surreal. And just sort of create, a character that would look good on like an 80s movie poster for a film. Even if it's not like the main character, he's like, the guy in the background who can throw ninja stars or whatever that fucking saves him or something. Like, almost like a movie character in a script would be described or whatever. Yeah, so it has an 80s Hollywood sort of anti-hero vibe, I guess. I don't know. Someone like Snake Plissken,
Gotcha. Yeah, for me, there's kind of a little story behind it, but basically, I always, well, not always, but for a majority of my life, I've been the one to always be the one joking around and kind of, have that more upbeat energy all the time and kind of be the annoying one in my family, so to speak. And, also a big, thing in my life was after high school, I really got into drinking coffee, and that kind of runs in my family. So when we moved to South Carolina, me and my dad, we always went to Starbucks. Like, they opened one a couple years into it, and we were going there every day. And one day I was just sitting drinking the coffee, showing magic to my dad, and I'm like, I got a name for my channel, the Caffeinated Magician. And from there, I've just kind of been developing it.
It's a great name, man. It's a catchy name. It's a cute character. It's a catchy name. I think it works, man. It suits you well. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, brother. I appreciate it. So that's it. So, anyways, go ahead and plug yourself one more time. Let everybody know where they can find you and how they can book you and all that.
On Instagram, I'm Joe Piper Magic. On Facebook, I'm also Joe Piper Magic. If you just type that after those addresses. On YouTube, I'm youtube.com The Joe Piper. I'm trying to get that changed to Joe Piper Magic. It's not so super easy, but the channel name is Joe Piper Magic Official. But check me out on Instagram. That's where I upload regularly and upload both new and old content of my card collection. I'm probably going to overhaul my YouTube and put some new content up because people are wanting more longer videos. They've been asking for street magic videos, which I don't think I want on my Instagram. I'll keep that on my YouTube, so I'll be overhauling that hopefully this year or the coming year. But yeah, Joe Piper Magic on Instagram is the best place to find me. There should be an email link there if you want to hire me. I don't really do private parties anymore. I do events and product launches sometimes if I do a table magic, but I'm available for music videos, special effects and appearances, and advising for effects on shows. I've advised for theatrical shows and music videos, doing fire effects and blood effects, etc. So yeah, just hit me up with a DM or an email link, and follow me.
Yeah, for sure. And one of my friends, he's actually a pop/rapper, and I was featured on one of his music videos. So if he ever has another one, I'll let him know about you.
I've got a couple coming up this year. I'll probably post some behind the scenes stuff on my Insta or my YouTube. But yeah, it's always fun to be part of a bigger production and work with other artists. I work closely with a lot of music artists myself. I had a little Magic Joe theme tune done by Rigid Moods, and I think music and picking the right music is a big part of magic as well. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, man. All right, bro. Well, you take care, and we'll keep in touch.